Because he showed me this red hat that he's showing me from the other side.
I almost wore a red hat with this on it today, too.
Oh, shut the hell up.
And I said to myself, I go, Dad, I'm going to wear this red hat so Matt will see me and you'll come talk to me.
That's going to be what it is. So please know that, first of all, your dad is here. Because he kept saying to me, I wasn't supposed to die like this. I wasn't supposed to die like this. And first of all, I know that this man had suffered before his passing here in the physical world. But when I'm connecting with your dad, he keeps saying to me, I didn't want to die. I didn't want to die. Do you understand that? And as tough as this was, your father said to me that he was holding on to hope here in this world. He says, Matt, he says, I was ready to do any treatment. He says, I was ready to do anything. He says, and I was not going to say this was over. He says, until I actually died. Does that make sense to you? And first of all, your dad wants to thank you for the way that you fought behind him and for the way that you stayed with him. But what's really tough is he tells me that his family is still upset with either doctors or nurses that were taking care of him before his passing. Because I feel, when I'm connecting with your dad, that you're all upset because you feel as though that they weren't taking seriously what was going on with your dad or what was happening within his body. Do you understand that? He keeps telling me, I had two illnesses. He talks about like this long-term illness that he was facing, but also at the same time, he keeps talking about fluid buildup when I'm connecting with him. And he keeps saying to me, Matt, I drowned. How do you connect with that?
He did. He had kidney failure, so he was always like gurgling and fluid would come up in his lungs in the hospice, and he had heart failure too, so he had multiple system failure. And yes, we were very upset because we felt like he was very neglected in this facility that he was in. I would come in and he'd be laying there in a wet diaper with no blanket on him, and he was cold and thirsty, and they would just ignore him, and it was really upsetting.
Do you see what your loved ones do? What's tough is that a lot of times when we lose a loved one, our last moments are so tough with them because we think back to these times. And what our loved ones want to do is they want to address these things and tell us, listen, it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like if you can see your dad now, the first thing that he's so excited about is, first of all, he wants you to know that he can walk and move on the other side. Because he's like running up and down to me when I'm connecting with him. Because he says, he tells me, he says, the saddest thing was, Matt, is when I lost my legs here in this world. He keeps saying to me, I didn't want to be in the chair. I didn't want to be in the chair. I didn't want to be in the chair. And he also says to me this. He says, Matt, I want to thank my family for the way that they laid with me, for the way that they stayed with me, and for everything that they did. Because your dad just showed me you going and laying on the side of him in bed. And you're like, Dad, I'm not going to leave you. And he even shows me you going, like watching to make sure his chest was rising and falling, making sure that he was still breathing. He says, and Matt, that is something that I will never, ever forget. He also is telling me, he's pointing to your hat right now when I'm connecting, because he showed me this red hat that he's showing me from the other side.
I almost wore a red hat with this on it today, too.
Oh, shut the hell up.
And I said to myself, I go, Dad, I'm going to wear this red hat so Matt will see me and you'll come talk to me.
That's going to be what it is. You know, and then when I'm connecting with him, he showed me you laying on the side of him in the bed before his passing. He showed me about the way that he didn't want to be in the wheelchair because I saw a wheelchair being pushed around. That's how they're talking to me, and that's how come I'm talking so fast to you. So when you were going to wear that red hat and you were talking to your dad before you came here, that's his way of validating that he heard you. And letting you know that it didn't matter if you wore the red hat, the brown hat, if you had a turd on your head, it doesn't matter what you did. His soul was coming through. But he also wants to tell you this. He says, Matt, my daughter was like my angel here in this world. Because not only did you make sure that you were on the side of him, he also tells me, Matt, it's like she had a little schedule. She always made sure that somebody was next to me, on the side of me, and with me. He says, and that is something that I will never forget. He says, so please thank her and let her know. Don't think of those last moments. Don't be upset with the doctors or the nurses or what had happened. He says, even though they didn't take care of me the way that you would have taken care of me, he says, that's why I had you. He says, because you filled in the missing pieces that they didn't. And your dad said to me that you allowed his soul to go to the other side and feel so good. He also tells me he's got the dog there as well when I'm connecting. He says, Matt, and if you talk about the dog, he says she's gonna blow up.
That was his dog, Spanky, and he was like his little child, his best little friend. And when the dog died, he had the remains cremated. They were lost, and I felt so bad. I'm like, Dad, I can't bury you with Spanky like I promised because I don't because my father lost the remains, and so the dog was his whole life.
So he was supposed to be buried with the dog,
Yeah.
wasn't buried with the dog, but now all of a sudden he's coming through and telling you the dog's there. This is what's so amazing. And this is why your loved ones come through in this way, letting you know that even though you didn't get to fulfill that wish, your daddy has that dog with him.